Here we are for sample problem 3.6. It's on page 50 of your textbook, and we're going to calculate both the variance and we're also going to include the standard deviation for the numbers listed in that problem. And they just give you the numbers as followed. So this 937411754. So over here on the right side, I have the shortcut formula for calculating a sample variance, and I can see right now that I have a typo in there, so I'll fix that. And I'm going to break this down into pieces so you can see how to do the calculation. So we're still going to need the sum and the mean and do some things with that. So I'm going to just add in some things. The sum is equal to that, the n, and then I'm going to have the mean equal, and I'll also include the average, so we'll do that. We'll do that first, and then we'll continue to add and use those numbers to do additional calculations, and I will also show you some shortcuts that we could use. So first thing, sum. I'm going to go to auto sum here, click, and then just click and drag to select my range, enter the check, and that gives me 40. The number of observations I can see right here is just 8. Again, I could use the count function if I wanted to, but in this case there's no need to. And simply taking the sum divided by the number of observations. And I suppose in some way I could make the case this could be an uppercase n being the whole population. It doesn't really say, but for purposes of this example it doesn't really matter. And then again, equals average, click the cells I want to include in that average calculation, and there it is, 5. So now what I want to do is set up some other columns. So first we're going to have x, I'm going to center that, and then we're going to have x minus the mean, and then we're going to have x minus the mean, but what we're going to do is square that number. I'm going to add a 2, and once that 2's on there, I'm going to highlight the 2 and go up here into the font group, the format cells, open this dialog box, and I'm going to click superscript. That's going to make that 2 higher, as so it looks like it's to the second power, because that's actually what we're doing. We're going to square that number. So all I need to do for x is copy these numbers. So I'm going to copy those cells. I have to get rid of just one thing here. I'm going to pause for just, sorry about that. I had a little option on my computer that was probably going to be distracting. So I'm going to center the whole column. Again, I'll center both of these as well. And then in this case, I'm going to go x minus the mean. So I'm going to take column A, so A12 minus, and then we'll just use this calculation of the mean. Now, notice the cursor is just after the D7. I'm going to hit my F4 key, which is going to put dollar signs in front of the column and the row. That means an absolute reference. So now when I hit the check mark to enter that, I can now copy this formula, and when I go down to other rows, you can see that it's always referencing D7, where when I copied it up here I was referencing A12, down here I'm referencing A15, A18 here. So again, that's a handy little trick. I'm actually going to do auto sum here, and you'll notice that because we're subtracting the mean from it, it comes out to 0, which is what you would expect. Now what I want to do though is square this number. So equals that number, and I am going to use the little caret above the above the 6. So shift and then I'm going to put a 2 in there, and that's going to square that number. Click to enter it, so you can see that 4 squared is 16. So again, all I did was reference that cell in the C column and then put that little caret with the 2, and here we go. I'm going to drag the fill handle, which is in the lower right hand corner. That copies it all, and I'm also going to do an auto sum on this, which will give me a number of 46. So in effect, we've got that sum of 46, which I'm going to use in a calculation. That's actually the inside portion of this sample variance calculation. So I'm just going to reference that over here. And the next part is this outside part, the 1 divided by n minus 1. So I'm just going to make that as a label. So I'm going to, just to the left of the enter key, put a single quote, and then it'll appear as a number, as a label, not as a calculation, divided by, and then I'll put it in parentheses, n minus 1 is equal to, and in this case our number of observations is 8, so n minus 1 is just going to be 7. So it would really be, in this case, 1, I should do it that way, 1 divided by 7 to show that it's 1 over 7. In this case though, if I use just the 7 instead, because multiplying 46 by 1 and then divided by 7, that's the same as 1/7, it makes my next calculation a little easier, which is going to give me the variance, which is equal to equal to 46 divided by the 7, which gives us 6.571429. And to get the standard deviation of that, well, there's a couple things we could do. First thing we could do is equal the square root, SQRT, and then open paren, I'm just going to click on that number since it's S squared is the variance, so S would be the square root, hit enter, and that gives me 2.5348. Now the other way to get the standard deviation is using a function, which is equal the standard, and right here we'll use standard deviation of a sample. And I'm just going to select the range, close parenthesis, and you see it matches up that way. Now if you've got an earlier version of Excel, you can use this one right here. This is compatible with Excel 2007 and earlier. Again, it's going to give me the same calculation. And in fact, with the variance, I could do the same thing, equals variance, and it gives me different options here. I could choose this one, the variance, and select that range, hit enter, and you can see that it still matches. So there's a variety of functions available to do that. Let's just move this over one cell so you can see that. And of course, in addition to the individual functions, I also can use the data analysis tab, and in this case I'm going to use descriptive statistics. Click OK. My input range is just going to be A1 to A8. There's no label, so I don't need to select that. My output range, I'm just going to click right here on K10, and I'm going to select summary statistics, click OK, and just going to expand this out a little bit. And you can see right here, the mean is 5, which we calculated. The median we didn't do. The count is 8. The sum is 40, which we matched. The standard deviation is 2.56348, which we got. The sample variance is 6.571429. So we matched all of that. But again, the reason I make you walk through those different calculations is to make sure you understand how we get those numbers, because that will come in handy later on as we continue to do more calculations to make sure that all of this is clear, how that you're arriving at those numbers. Alright, that's it for sample problem 3.6.